Hi, everybody. I'm Miss Karen at Adams Memorial Library. Thank you very much for joining me for this week's book report. Well, at this point in March, I think I'm getting really ready to see lots of flowers. I have my flower blouse, I have my flower pin. I'm ready to talk about flowers. So that's what this week's books are going to be about. They're all about growing your own flower gardens. And you can check these books out from the library, or you can always reserve them and pick them up through curbside service. But either way, if you're interested in these books, come to the library and check them out. So this week's books are, this is The Sunflower, which was written by Lola M. Schaefer and illustrated by Donald Cruz. Lola Plants a Garden. This is Lola. Lola Plants a Garden was written by Anna McQuinn and illustrated by Rosalind Beardshaw. ZINNIA'S Flower Garden. This is Zinnia, and this was illustrated and written by Monica Wellington. This book is called FLORETTE, and you can see there's quite a garden here. This one was written and illustrated by Anna Walker. And the last book is called The Imaginary Garden. It was written by Andrew Larsen and the illustrations by Irene Luxbacher. So let's talk about these books a little bit more. This is The Sunflower is what's called a cumulative story. Sometimes it's called This is a House that Jack Built story, because that was a rhyme that keeps repeating. So when a story repeats, it's called a cumulative tale. So this one starts out, this is a sunflower, tall and bright. It stands in my garden day and night. And then it goes on. This is the blossom, yellow and round, that crowns the sunflower, tall and bright. It stands in my garden day and night. So this talks all about sunflower blooming and all the sunflower seeds, and then what happens when the plant starts to wilt and the seeds are spread, and then what happens next year in this garden. And I like this book because I really like the illustrations. I like the science, learning about the plant and the sunflowers, and I love this picture of all the birds who love to eat the sunflowers. So there are a lot of birds I really like on here. Some of my favorites, there's red-bellied woodpecker, bluebird, there's a female and a male cardinal, red-winged blackbird, I like those, and finch is a house finch and a goldfinch. And in the back of this book, there's a key that tells you the names of all the birds if you don't recognize them all, because I needed to use it. I recognize some of them, but not all of them. So I love this book because it's got beautiful flowers, beautiful birds, beautiful science, all around good, and a fun tale to tell, fun story to tell. Now this one, Lola Plants a Garden. Lola has a garden that I would really, really love to hang out in. Oh, Lola's garden is so fun. Lola is inspired to make her garden from getting a book with garden poems in, and this is her favorite. She calls it the Mary Mary poem. It's the rhyme that says, Mary, Mary, quite contrary, how does your garden grow? With silver bells and cockle shells and pretty maids all in a row. So after Lola and her mother read that, Lola decides she would like to plant her own flower garden, and her mom says there'll be room next to our vegetable garden. So here's another reason why I really love this story. They go to the library so Lola can check out lots of flower books. And then she picks her favorites, and they buy the seeds. And then Lola gets to work planting them. But it takes a long time to grow flowers from seeds, any plants from seeds. So while she's waiting for her flowers to grow, she gets busy making some art. So she makes a book of flowers, and her mother types up the Mary Mary poem, and they put that in the book. And then she makes a little Mary Mary doll that she can put in the garden too. And she waits and she works, she waters the garden, she pulls the weeds, And then when it's finally ready, she thinks maybe she can have a garden party. And oh, I wish I was invited to that garden party because it looks like it's awfully fun. I would also really like to visit ZINNIA'S flower garden because I think that one's very beautiful too. One of the reasons why I like this story is it shows you that having a garden, a beautiful garden, is a year-round venture. You got to start planning. You got to start planting early if you want to enjoy your flowers in the summer. So it starts off in spring. When it starts to get a little bit warmer outside, ZINNIA'S out starting to work in her garden. She first has to make sure there aren't any rocks that accumulated over the winter. She turns over the soil. Then she starts to plant her seeds. She plants cosmos and black-eyed Susans and asters and sweet peas. And her dog plants a bone, see if that will grow. And then too, ZINNIA has to work and wait. She needs the sun. She needs the rain. She needs the worms to help the soil. And she needs to weed. She has to keep working. But one of the reasons that I really like this book is because of the illustrations. Parts are painted and parts are also photographs of real plants. So Monica Wellington grew a garden at the same time she was making this book. And then she took pictures of the plants and then used this in what's called collage. I think collage art is really great. I love having all those things mixed together and I love to look at it. So as things get bigger and bigger in the garden all year long, ZINNIA keeps a notebook so she knows everything that's happening. Some butterflies are visiting her garden. And then finally, she's got beautiful flowers to share. And then at the very end, when it's winter, she still thinks about her garden and plans what her garden will look like next year. Now in this story, this girl is May, and she has a beautiful garden at her home, but unfortunately, she and her family are leaving that house and leaving that garden, and they're moving to the city. She had an apple tree at home, lots of birds, lots of flowers, and her mother tells her they can have another garden in the city, but she only has a tiny little balcony, and the houses are really close together, so she doesn't know where she could do a garden. There's only a little bit of green that she sees. So she thinks, well, maybe she could draw a garden. But unfortunately, if you draw a garden with chalk and crayon, it doesn't last very long if it rains. So she thinks maybe she can make a garden inside. They've got lots of boxes that she could draw on. But unfortunately, her parents aren't done unpacking those boxes. So she started off with some daisies and then they had to go be unpacked instead. So she just looks out the window, but she thinks she sees a little place in the city where maybe there'll be some green space. So when there's time, her mother takes her little sister and May, and they go looking, and they do find a playground, but it's not very green there either. But then May sees a little bird, like the birds that she saw at home. So they follow the bird, see where the bird's heading. And the bird is going someplace beautiful. It's a store, it's a floral shop, and it's called FLORETTE. And the owner even left the window open for birds to come in and fly around inside. But unfortunately, the shop's closed now when May visits, so she can't go in there. But she does notice something growing outside the shop, just a tiny little bit of green. But she wonders if she has just one tiny little plant to start with, maybe it'll grow into something bigger and better, and maybe she'll even get some help. This last book, The Imaginary Garden, is also kind of one about moving from a place with a big garden to someplace that's going to have a modified garden. This is Theodora. She's with her papa, her grandfather, in Papa's magnificent garden, and they have chairs where they can sit, and Papa tells her all about the flowers. But then the time comes when Papa has to move too. He needs to go to some place where he doesn't have as much to take care of. So he goes to an apartment in the city, and it is closer to Theo, and it does have a bigger balcony than May has. But unfortunately, it's really windy up there. So Papa says he doesn't think he can have a garden because all the plants might blow away. Or just blow over, get the flowers knocked off. Theo says maybe you could have plastic flowers. I said, well, that would be a plastic garden, not quite the same. Then Theo says maybe you can have an imaginary garden. Maybe that would work. So they start to get out their paints, plan, and draw. They have their gardening boots. Papa gets them matching gardening hats, and he gets a great big canvas, and he attaches it to the wall so it won't blow away. And he gets out his paints, and they start to paint some sky, a wall, and a beautiful place to garden. So they keep going together, but then it's time for Papa's vacation, and he leaves Theo to tend the garden herself. Can she take care of it herself? Can she paint something herself? You can check this book out from the library and find out what the garden looks like. So if you are in the mood to get some inspiration for your planting, you can check out these books. But I hope if you're planting things that you'll have good luck with all your plants. You can do some flowers inside now and maybe take them outside later. But either way, thank you very much for joining me today. And please join me next week and we'll talk about some more books. Thank you, friends. Bye-bye.